I see it with so many purpose-led businesses, like people who are absolutely incredible at what they do. So many of them have kind of stayed in that like best kept secret world. You don't realize how valuable they are. And then you've got people who have imposter syndrome.
This is the Born to be Brilliant podcast, helping you harness the habits and unlock the tools to bring you more meaning, vibrance, and the personal power to help you shine like the diamond you are. Welcome to another episode, everybody. I'm joined in the studio today by Danielle Garber. She's actually an old contact of mine. We go way, way back into a whole past life, I think. And the journey that this girl's been on is incredible. I cannot wait for her to share this all with you today. We're digging into every part of marketing and you and just not fitting all the boxes and becoming everything that you're here to be. So Danielle, massive welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. Yeah, definitely. I'm not one for fitting in boxes.
I know, you and me both. And I think, in our past lives in the performing world, I think that's probably was an expression of that, right? It was like we needed to get out and do our thing and express ourselves, and then stuff happens. We have responsibilities, we have to pay the bills, and we start sort of falling into life and careers that maybe weren't for us. But I'm gonna hand this to you, and I would love for you to share. I don't know all of this story myself, and I know it's fascinating, but just the journey that you went on into that sort of, from early adulthood into corporate, and where you found yourself and what it all means.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I was younger, when I was 18, I started singing, and it was kind of something fun to do. It was something I did really on the side. And then when I was 22, I then started working for B&Q, and I got a job in their marketing department. And I applied for a job. I had no idea what it even involved, but I thought it sounded fun. And I walked into this room in a leopard print coat and bright red shoes into an office with two women who were dressed very similarly, and just kind of instantly felt like I'd found somewhere that I could really fit in and shine. And as soon as I started that role and I got dropped in at the absolute deep end, as soon as I started it, I just thought, this is exactly what I've been looking for. Like it lit up every part of my brain. I loved it. I loved the buzz. I loved the hustle. I loved that side of business. Like marketing was just absolutely where I wanted to be. And it just seemed to come very naturally to me. So I stayed there for a while, and then realized very quickly that actually I had a business degree, but it just didn't kind of really scratch the surface. So I went back, did all my marketing qualifications whilst I was still working. And then I ended up, once I'd got my qualifications, working for a global electronics company, and they were into DJ equipment and music equipment. So it was great. And I was flying around the world. But I had probably about a 4-hour commute every day. Was insane. And so, yeah, I kind of like very quickly got to the point where I was like, it was taking so much out of me. Like it was amazing because I learned so many things there. Like I was in a really small team. And although we were global, like as with most corporate businesses, like you've never got the budget that you need. And so I was like, we need this and we need this. And the kind of company we were in, they were very flexible, and we could kind of like move. So I was like, we need a website. I couldn't believe like this was not that long ago. I can't believe I was having to like argue to have a website for a global business, but we did.
Wow.
And so it was like I was creating videos like that we were using on Amazon and John Lewis. I was creating them on my laptop on Camtasia. So I kind of got to learn lots of different parts of marketing. And then when I left there, and then I started working sort of closer to home, still doing marketing, not flying around the world. So it wasn't quite as exciting, but I just started feeling like, maybe the corporate world is not for me anymore. And I had this, I'd met my now husband at that point, and it took him about a year before he showed me his website for his business. So he owns his own business. And after about a year, he showed it to me, and I was just like, oh my God, please tell me nobody goes to this. No, I don't use it. I was like, thank God. Because it was horrendous. It was like he always gets really upset when I talk about it because he's so embarrassed even now. But it was just your stereotypical generic, like his financial advisor. And it was so awful. And I was like, I need to just make you another website. And so I was doing that in the background. And then we got married 10 years ago. We were in Costa Rica and we had these incredible 3 weeks out there. And I was so used to like the corporate world and walking into boardrooms and the high heels and the tight structured dresses. And, I did that world really well. And I just remember standing there and like after 3 weeks in Costa Rica, like I was all tan, my hair's all like curly, and I was there in this tiny little tie-dye like play suit that I brought out there, and I had like friendship bands all up.
You turned all hippie.
Yeah, I'd gone off the deep end. Like we'd been in a yoga retreat for like 2 weeks, and I was just like, I just wish that I could do what I do. Like I love doing what I do, but I just wish that I could like walk into a room dressed like this, and just be like, hey dudes, and be taken seriously. And I didn't know back then that was even an option. And then nothing happened for like a while. And then eventually my husband just turned around and was like, why don't you leave? Why don't you come and work with me? And rather than you making all these big companies, all this money, why don't you do it for us? Why don't we build something together? And his company was fairly established at that point, but like what we then did together just skyrocketed. We doubled the size of the business. It's now treble the size it was. And he was already kind of, a big business because he's only one advisor. So yeah, we were able to do that. And I mean, it wasn't, I make it sound like it happened overnight. Like it absolutely didn't. I remember because I had to teach myself. I stepped out the corporate world and then I had to teach myself. Like I used to have teams working below me. I had a whole graphic design team. I had PR people I could like hand things over to. You just send an email, you'd send a brief and it would just magically happen. And then all of a sudden, like you're literally the marketing department of one and you come up with a great idea. And then it's like, oh, actually now I have to execute that idea myself. And I'd had some experience of that, just like because I'd worked in small teams, but like having to do everything. So yeah, I learned lots of things. I learned SEO, which turned out to be so incredible. And I didn't realize, in my mind, it was like really boring before I started doing it. And then I just loved it because it made so much sense with like my sort of brand strategy background and the content background and all of that kind of everything fed in, like everything I knew about brand, it just made perfect sense. So like all of these kind of different threads that had sort of all been there before started to sort of come together. Like I don't want to sound like AI and be like it all wove into this wonderful tapestry, but it kind of did. So that's kind of, that was my sort of going from where I was. And then after about 2.5 years of working solely with mine and Simon's business, I then sort of decided, right, I've got enough kind of headspace and free time. I want to take this and apply this sort of in a world where I've got a massive passion, which is the sort of wellness industry and personal development. And I wanted to work with people that, really made a difference in the world, like that genuinely were out there changing people's lives, because it's one thing to sell somebody some electronics equipment and, and I've been in the music industry. Like I know you can light people's lives up, you can spread joy and all of those things, and they're all really valid. But I was on the sort of consumer end. And so it really did feel like we're just selling somebody a bit of electronics here. And I just wanted something like I'd met through my own sort of personal journey. I'd met integrative medicine doctors, I'd met nutritionists, I'd met like yoga teachers who genuinely were transforming people's lives. And And I just thought this is like criminal almost, that they don't know about these people, but they don't even know what's possible. They don't even know this stuff exists.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of like, I went on a bit of a mission then to like, to find people like that and help them translate what it was that they were doing in a way that like all of the big industries or the big brands do that. But you have all these incredible people who individually are absolutely transforming people's lives and people don't know about them. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of where I ended up.
That is so huge and so relatable in so many ways. Like, first of all, when you were talking about the marketing team of one, and I think that, lots of people listening to this podcast will relate to that, where it's, how do I bring that idea to life? I haven't got a team of graphic designers that can pull it together, and AI is still not like quite there yet. And, some people have got remote teams and people that can help, but when you're starting out and don't have the budget for that, it is a case of figuring it all out yourself. And I think, yeah, I certainly related to a lot of what you were saying there about, well, I even went and learned how, I figured out this, I did it on there. And I've done a lot of that too. And I think that's okay. You learn so much by self-teaching and doing. And then, yes, when you have the budget, not only can you delegate better because you know what you can do, so then you can get somebody who's even better than you to do a better job. I think, yeah, we do wear lots of hats as business owners, especially in the early days, but that is okay. And you've kind of joined the dots backwards, which we always do when we get to this point, I think, in our lives and careers, as we go, oh, now I can see why all the steps of that journey, they kind of played a part, like the high heels in boardrooms to the actually, why can't I go in there like this, was an identity thing in itself. And now here you are, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but actually helping people with exactly that and bringing their identity to the work they do, and how they present that to the world. Because ultimately, if we're in business, we are in marketing in some way. We've always got to be marketing ourselves or our business in order for it to actually be more than a hobby. So it's all connected, it's all relevant, and it's just brought you to this place now that I think is just incredible. It's like the heart center of what you're here for, right? What you were here to do all along.
Yeah, it feels like that. I mean, I think so many people, and I made the mistake myself when I started my business, is that so many people think that they have to present themselves a certain way to be marketable and to put themselves out into the world. And, I was there, I had a full kind of like a full circle moment last year, because we got married in Costa Rica. We have a love affair with Costa Rica. We go back most years. We've got friends that live out there now. Like, it's for us, it's so special.
I thought you lived there at one point because I'd seen it popping up and I was like, oh my God, she's emigrated.
we're there quite a lot. And we were there last year, and I've been working. So one of the places that we stay when we go out there, they're changing. So they were always a surf resort, and they are kind of evolving into this surf and wellness resort. They've added a sauna, they've added cold plunge, they've got a breathwork studio, they're doing transformation retreats. Like, it's incredible what they're doing. And so I've been really lucky. I've been working with them. We're redoing the website now. So kind of had this like wonderful experience of working with them, but had this moment last year where I was literally in a bikini, and the owner sort of walked past and was like, oh, have you got 5 minutes? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And I literally picked up my laptop and I trotted off to their office in a bikini with the laptop, sat down and started, we had this meeting, and I walked out of it and I just remembered like this moment where I was there in a play suit thinking no one's going to take me seriously. But I think those are rules that apply in the corporate world.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the wonderful things I think about working for yourself is you get to redefine what those rules are. You get to choose how you want to do business. And I'm lucky. I mean, I've worked with some incredible people. I work with a lot of women, And I think it's so important. Like I'm not a mother, but I work with a lot of mothers, and it's so important for them to be able to do business on their terms, because you have so many things pulling you in so many different directions. And I cannot tell you the amount of Zoom calls that I've had where somebody is either breastfeeding or they're talking and I'm making silly faces at the screen because I'm entertaining their baby. And like, you know, we're doing it, like we're working, and it's the value of our work isn't diminished because we're working like that. It's actually making the work more fun, more relatable, like the connections you're able to build with people, you know, but people think I can't do it because I have to do it this way. I have to present myself this certain way. And the irony is that when you start just showing up as you, people connect more. Like the first thing I did with my husband, because my husband, especially after COVID, he hates wearing suits. Like it's just not his thing.
Yeah.
Like he's a surfer. He's so much more comfortable, like just walking around in a sarong, which is very odd because we live in Southampton. But
well,
you know, and I don't have photos of him in a sarong on his website. I don't know, maybe if I did, like he'd be more successful. But you know, we have much more relaxed photos on our website. Like they're not there's photos of him with a dog, like there's photos of him out on like Warsash Shore. Like it's much more authentic to who he is. Like we've taken his voice and we've put that into the website. So we're not trying to stuff him into the box of this is what people think a financial advisor looks like, you know. And I did it with my business when I first started out. I was like, oh, I'm going to do this and it's going to be this way. And eventually it becomes exhausting to try and stick with this persona that you've built. I mean, I'm all for putting your best foot forward, and don't get me wrong, like I literally was running around thinking, oh, I'll probably put some makeup on for this because that's not my normal sort of day-to-day routine. But I think when you try and present yourself in a way that actually isn't authentic to you, it does just add an extra layer of work in trying to keep up this persona. And actually, most of the people that work with you and want to work with you probably would connect more to the version of you that is just closer to who you are.
I couldn't agree more. And so much, even like more right now than ever, because everything can be falsified so easily, if that makes sense. Oh, the golden nuggets in there. I mean, when you were talking about the rules, like, you know, working for yourself, you can kind of write your own rules. I love that. And I think that's probably why I've worked for myself since I was 18, because I'm not very good at following rules and I'm not very good at conforming in that way. I'm too expressive. But there's a bit of a paradox to that, because I think that, myself included, I think a lot of us do that, or we start that way. But if you hit a point where something feels confusing or you're lost and you start seeking answers, you can end up falling into either through scrolling and looking and comparing and watching other people, or through courses or programs or coaches or people you reach out to, you can end up inadvertently following this other unwritten rule book, this code of, you know, I caught myself doing this with even just structuring what I was going to deliver offers within my business, until one day I went, why am I doing that? That's just what they do. That's not what I want to do. That's not how I want to do it. Yeah. And when I thought back to then anything I'd ever done that had been a great success, I was like, well, I never followed anyone's rules for that. I did it my way. And it made me just go, right. And I scrapped everything and went, no, it's that. And I knew it was that in the first place. Stop getting distracted and following these rules. Get back to what you know to be true for you. And who cares if people are saying, you know, one day they're saying this price point works, or this price point works, or it's got to be this formula, or you need to be this audience, or you must have one problem and one niche and solve one thing. Like, the rules of entrepreneurship, I say, like, tear them all up and throw them out, because even that can keep you constricted and trying to fit into a box and perform in a way that somehow meets the rules.
I
It's
mean,
a
I
trap.
understand. Yeah, I understand niching. Obviously,
Yeah, of
my whole
course.
career has been in marketing, so I understand it. But I had a coach really early on, so I was like, I have to offer brand, website, brand strategy, the website, the design, and SEO. Like they go together. And she was like, pick one.
Mm,
I was like, for me, you cannot separate brand strategy and brand design. Like it just doesn't, one doesn't work without the other. If you do, like you cannot separate brand design from your web design, because you just end up with all these like
mismatch.
everything
Yeah.
gets lost in translation, and then you get one person's interpretation
Mm,
of that, and the person that's building your brand may understand the design, but then they don't understand the strategy behind it. And then you end
yeah.
up, so it just, for me, and then I'm like, well, the everything leads into your SEO. Like the
Yeah.
reason we did so well in my husband's business wasn't because we were prolific with content. We were specific, and we were so specific to his audience and what it was that they were looking for. And I remember like we went through so many companies, SEO companies, because I was like, I need a consultant. I'm not looking for someone to do it because I don't want your voice. It needs to be
Mm,
asked. And they, basically they all said, no, it can't be done. But they all turned round and said, there's no keywords. There's no keywords. What he does is so specific. It's so niche. There's no keywords. You can't do it. And I knew instinctively that that was wrong. And then I eventually found someone who was incredible, who worked with me and taught me what I needed to be doing. But I think you just
yeah.
know instinctively that actually, okay, that rule might be true for someone else,
Yeah.
but it's not true for me because we play by a different rule book over
I
here.
love that. I absolutely love that. And I think that's just it. And you put those things together. And actually, I quite a while back now, but I remember a time when I was probably working with I've worked with various web designers over the years on various businesses, and I remember a time where I was like, I need somebody who isn't just this isn't just about making something that's pretty. It's
Yeah.
about making something that converts. And probably then I didn't even have the added layer of brand and language quite nailed, but I just knew that aesthetic was pointless if it didn't convert and take people on a journey. And finding anyone, it makes me cringe to think that the crazy amounts that I spent historically on supposed professionals who only really got one strand, and then it's in a whole another department and another person that gets another strand, and it's not cohesive. So I love that you went, no, I know what I'm doing here and what I want to achieve, and it's proven. I'm with you. Like I get principles of business and niching and marketing, but there's nuance, and
Yeah.
yeah, people get too stuck on these rules, and it does take away the realness. Like I've even been reflecting on this week. Like there's certain amount of stuff that I do that because of the way I work and the way my brain works, sometimes I need to get loads of ideas out and do some planning. And I like plans and structure. But if you I will plan and structure a certain amount of content. I have to, and otherwise it would be too haphazard and it wouldn't be consistent. But if you get too regimented about it, then you lose the magic and the spark. And actually, I'll have all this well thought out content, but the things that always perform best are the things where I'm either in my car or I've just had a thought and I literally just talk at my camera and it's so real and pure and in the moment. And that does better because I'm sure it connects with people on a better level. The realness wins every time.
I think so. And I think, especially now that we are in this AI age, everything feels very polished and very generic.
Yeah.
And actually, for me, like I find AI really, really helpful when I'm creating brand strategies, not because it gets it right, but because it gets it so wrong that it's almost like having someone I can argue with. Like when
Yes.
you're having to correct somebody that's
Mm,
so wrong when they are making assumptions about your business or about what you do or your clients and how you work with them and their psychology. Like I
yeah.
literally use AI to just argue with because I know it's going to get it wrong. And I think, we're so used to hearing the same thing over and over again. I always call it like the sea of sameness.
Mm,
But I mean, I've been doing yoga. Let's take an example. Like I've been doing yoga for the best part of like 14 years now. And I've done yoga retreats all over the world with different yoga instructors, and I have never ever found two yoga instructors that are the same,
mm,
ever. And yet, if you went to Canva and you typed in, yoga logo, or you went onto Fiverr and you tried to find a logo for a yoga instructor, and a logo obviously is just a teeny part of a visual brand. Like it's not
yeah.
actually a brand. It all looks the same.
Yeah.
People use templates, and I understand why, because it's hard. Like as a business owner, you are spinning so many plates,
Mm,
and half the time you just need to get things done.
mm,
And I do agree, done is always better than perfect. But I think when it's something so important as your brand and your website and how you're communicating yourself and putting yourself out there into the world, like if you're just relying on a generic concept about your industry,
mm,
like how does that communicate anything about who you are and what you do and how you like what you believe about what you do and why you do what you do?
yeah.
Like all of those things are far more important than some polished version. Like I think you said, like the aesthetic is kind of irrelevant if it's
Hmm.
not tied to your customer journey. Like if
Yeah.
it's not actually going to get people to book,
Hmm.
who cares about being pretty?
It can be pretty and it can also be written so well that you could read it and every word is on point and is, designed to convert SEO, everything, but it can feel completely flat if it's written in that kind of, it can be polished to perfection is what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, but there's no there's no energy, there's no spark, there's no, yeah, I'm playing around a lot with AI because I'm a tech geek and I love the capabilities. And I am one for like, get things done fast and go at 1,000 miles an hour. But there's a price to pay for that sometimes. And you've got to be careful. And, even recently I had an experience of this where I did something very quickly with AI, but what it gave me, like on paper, was great. But it had lost all the spark, all the magic. It was like it was sort of smoothed over and made, like you say, it's almost generic. It could be anyone's. So I thought I could do some edit on it. And I ended up going, forget this, threw it out and started again. And then that same piece of work took me an entire day of deep dive. But at the end of that day, instead of having something that read well, but I had no connection with, I had something that I was like, oh my God, I love this. I'm so proud of this work. I've poured my heart and soul into it. This is golden. And
Yeah.
so there's a trade off, isn't there? I think there's definitely use cases for it. Lots of things technically and automations and even sort of analytics and planning can be great. But when it comes to the creative or the parts where you do need the, not just the human person, but even feel creatively, there's no there's no shortcuts.
I think we've forgotten the value of work.
Mm,
I think when I remember we had a business coach when I first started working with my husband. And I remember sitting there month after month, just like cringing because SEO is not a quick fix. Like it
mm,
is something, especially when you're starting from nothing, and especially when you're starting in an industry that is held to like higher standards. So if you're in anything to do with like finance or health or they call it your money or your life, like
mm,
anything that has like real genuine significance, like it takes a lot longer to kind of build that authority and get the trust that you need to actually start ranking. And I remember sitting there months after months, like almost having to like defend the work that I did, knowing that it was going to work. I knew that the strategy was solid. Like I knew it was going to work. It was like, we just have to we just have to tweak it. It's not the strategy. It's just like, maybe we need to like tweak how we write this or whatever. And what I learned through that was so much more valuable than if I had just, like, I always say the worst thing is to create like anything and it go viral, because you learn nothing through that. Like that whole process, it's like that instant success. You're like, yay, but you don't know what worked. Like if the first thing that you do suddenly goes viral, you have no way of benchmarking that and being able to then replicate that success. Like I think when you put, like I say, when I have my arguments with AI, when it's getting it completely wrong, I get so much clarity from those conversations, from having to correct it, from having to go through, from having to say, that isn't right. You've made this assumption, but it's actually this. Like our brains are so powerful. Like they are. And even with the capabilities of AI, when it gets better, it's going to get better at certain things. But that ability to discern the nuance and to read between the lines, because when I'm speaking to my clients, I guarantee what comes out of those meetings is either something that they've actually never said themselves. It's kind of playing in the nuance between what they've said, or it's a throwaway comment that was, that they've just kind of said in conversation. And I'm like, it's that.
Yeah.
It's that, because you're piecing together everything else. And AI isn't quite there yet at being able to understand that. And also when you're having a conversation with somebody, like you see when their face changes, when that energy shifts. And if it's something, that you're doing, you feel it.
Yeah.
You feel it. And AI will never be able to do that. It will never be able to feel when you get those tingles, when you're like, yes, this is it. Like it's not going to have that.
And it doesn't know what to ask you. Like when a human being knows, we just that's what connection is, right? And we know what to ask, especially with experts know what questions to ask. You can only get from AI what you ask it. So if you want a solution to a problem, you're going to go in there and you're going to ask a solution to the problem as you know it to be. But if you don't really know what question to ask, we don't know what we don't know. And I think there's there's so much there that I hope we will, as people, quickly realize that there isn't a substitute for that and in human connection, and that there's a place that we can use these tools. Absolutely. I've definitely spent time on things with AI and then at the end of it gone, oh my God, I actually just feel drained. And I wish I'd just sat there with a blank document and worked with my own head, or gone and contacted a fellow friend in business and said, can I sound this out with you? Because I know that they're going to challenge me in a much better way. They're going to know, like you say, they're going to feel the energy, see the sparks. That's what's missing. And it might not be that you have that person in your immediate friendship network or family, but there are people like us out there, and you've got to connect with the real people.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is, like, AI seems to forget very quickly, like the holistic view. It tends to become very myopic about the question that you're suddenly talking about now. And then it forgets, and it's not supposed to, but it does. Like it forgets all of the context that you've given it before. And as a human, when you're having a conversation with somebody, and especially you as a coach, somebody's told you, about their business and about what they're trying to achieve and all of the other things that fit into that. And then they say something that's completely at odds, and that is totally normal. Like we all do it, but they'll say something because something springs into the head. And then you're like, but that doesn't fit with what you've told me. Like that actually doesn't fit. I had like my first client I worked with, we worked on her brand for I think we'd been sat there, like we did it like face to face, and we'd been sat there for about 5 hours, and I literally tore up everything that we'd done because I just suddenly had this sense of, she was giving me all these answers. I was asking her questions. She was giving me very clear answers. And I just felt like this is not coming from her heart. And everything was, all of the answers she was giving me were about her qualifications and everything about her expertise and this and science this and evidence-based that. And I just stopped and I said to her, I was like, I'm just going to ask this question and you can choose to not answer it. But are you saying these things because you think people will give you more credibility, because you will be more credible if you add the science element to it? I was like, because what I'm hearing everywhere else is actually that you are deeply connected to the environment around you and to nature, and that actually every other part of your life is really about being in flow with that nature. I was like, that's not about what data, the science, the test, the this, that, I was like, that might be part of who you are. I was like, but really, that's not where you're going. And it really made her stop. And she was like, no, you're right. Like so you can't, AI isn't at a point yet where it's going to stop you and say, I don't think this is really, because it doesn't know you and it doesn't have that sense for when somebody is sat in front of you answering the questions they think they should be answering.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I can think of an example recently where somebody in a group was talking about their pricing and packages and structure for something, and they were wanting feedback on whether it looked right and if it made sense and everything else. And people were coming at it with really strategic answers. And I just looked at it. I can't remember the full detail of this. I just remember looking at it in an instant going, why are you doing that? Like, and it was, I think I challenged it are you doing this because of this or this? It was a psychology thing. It was a complete, and they were like, oh, good question. I think I might need to go and think about this for a minute, because I didn't answer the question that was actually asked. I asked what I think was a better question, because to me, it didn't make sense that they were even deliberating that particular point. It was like, why are you working on that? But that's the beauty of outside eyes. And this is why for years we've done that. We haven't historically gone to try, I always say, we don't perform dentistry on our children. We take them to the dentist. We don't try and cure all our ailments ourselves. We go to the professional or to the expert, because somebody else has another way of seeing what we can't see or fix or
yeah.
find.
I see it all the time. And I think, there's always, especially in marketing, web design, SEO, people are always, like, oh no, well, people can make their own websites now. They can do it really easily. They can do this, they can do that. It's like, do you know what? We've all got, like, for those of us that are blessed with hair, like, most of us, we've all got a pair of scissors at home.
Yeah.
Like, how many of us have ever cut our own fringes twice? You just don't do it, because you make that mistake once and then you realize, do you know what, actually, for something that's as important as this, I should probably leave that to somebody who's really trained to do it.
Yeah. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Oh my God. Like, to be honest with you, I build websites and brands. Like, I still to this day wish that I had somebody else build my website when I first started my business, because the overthinking that, and the perfectionism that kicked in as well, like the amount of time it took me. And I think, do you know what? I had the money in my business to pay somebody else, and I could have just used my time and energy to be out there going and finding customers and doing what I did best, and actually doing work for someone else. Because suddenly when you're doing work for yourself, like, you become the worst customer in the world. So I think, like you say, just because you can doesn't mean that you should.
No, and that's the thing. And over the years, especially entrepreneurs who have tried on all the hats and learned by doing a lot of things, you get to a point where you can do a lot of things reasonably well, but that doesn't mean you should. And I have to catch myself now if I start doing something that I know I can do to a reasonably good standard, and it's like, oh yeah, and then I don't have to pay somebody else, and yeah, and then I have to stop and go, this isn't the best use of my time. I've got someone that can do this. I can go, like you said, go and do something that only I can do and need to do. And by tomorrow, that thing's going to be done anyway, better than if I stick at this now. And yeah, I think there's also partly a bit of a dopamine thing about that. Like we feel good because we're doing something, and we then get that tick and that achievement, accomplishment. It feels good. And I think sometimes we get stuck doing things for those reasons, when even if it isn't the best use of our time, we should go and do the thing that's actually a bit more scary.
Yeah. And you nailed it earlier. You were saying like you did that whole thing with like AI, got to the end of it and felt completely exhausted.
Yeah, drained.
And I think the thing, like you will have seen this with your clients, like I see it with mine. Like, I mean, so much of what I do is being a mirror for my clients. And I always say like my superpower is seeing your superpower and then reflecting that back. Like, because when I'm thinking about what's possible for somebody, I don't have their limiting beliefs in my head.
Yeah.
We all have these limiting beliefs. I don't have that for someone. So I can see your vision really clearly, and it's big and it's clear, and and when someone is reflecting that back to you, and I'm also like not to toot my own horn, I'm a really good cheerleader. Like it's, I love working with people. I love working with people individually, and I love cheerleading people who are incredible at what they do.
Yeah.
Like it's just one of the best parts of my job. And then when you see that person on the other side of that, like when they've gone through that journey and they've gone through that process and they get to the other side and they're genuinely really proud of what, because it is a co-creation, like I've built it, but it is very much based on like a collaboration, and so they're really proud of what they've created. Like they don't get to the end of the project and feel like I did when I did my own website, and I was just like, I'm a bit drained now, a bit over it. They come out of it and they're energized, and then they want to go and show people what they've created, and they're ready to have those conversations with people. Like I think everything could just be boiled down to like the importance of those connections that you build with people, and having other people see you see yourself, and kind of working in that context of community.
Is so much more. What you're describing there is so much more than just brand, website, SEO, marketing. Like it's so much more. It's a journey. It must be like a journey for every client you work with. Like it's finding who they really are. There's an identity piece of work going on. Then there's self-development going on, and then there's probably permission to be who they are and showcase that to the world. And you're giving them that permission and cheering them on, but you're also helping them get clear on what it even is in the first place, because half the time that's a jumble. So like it's all of that in one. And like, I mean, you can't really market it as that, because like we said earlier, then that sounds like everything, but someone who gets that will see that anyway, just from the way you talk about it and the way you present you. But I think it is so powerful. There's so much more to it. We need more people in the world doing this kind of work that is grounded in real human connection. And like I'm picturing right now where I've worked with agencies, and I can see that around the room, like they're all boys and they're all like at their desks, and it's like that one does SEO, that one's going to do brand design, that one's going to, do you know what I mean? And it's also disconnected and almost like clinical in a tech way.
Yeah.
And
but I think the reality is there are actually a lot of people that are out there that are purpose led, and in every industry. And I get to see it. I mean, everybody that I work with in the wellness industry like is purpose led. Like nobody becomes a nutritionist to buy a Ferrari.
No.
Although there's a few of them that they've done really well, but that's not their driving force. Like no, not one single one of my customers has ever come to me and said, I want to build a $10 million business. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. It's just they probably will go on to do that. It's just that their focus is on the impact that they're going to have and the business, the help that they are going to be able to give people. And I think it doesn't matter whether you are an integrative medicine doctor who helps people with cancer, or you are a brand designer or a business coach or a financial advisor. Like there are people within every single industry that do what they do because they want to help people.
Yeah.
And the money is part of it, but it's not the main driver. And I think, those people are everywhere.
They are. And usually a startup is going to be like that, because otherwise, if you were in it for business, money and so on, you're going to buy a business, or you're going to invest in something that's designed to run without you, built to grow, scale, sell, whatever. That's the formula. And that's why you see all these big investors that do exactly that, buy businesses, staff them out. It's all about the profits, and that's fine, that's business. But I think there are more and more purpose-led people starting businesses from scratch because of the passion for the end user and those results, and especially in the wellness space. But then the thing comes of, but I don't just get to do the delivery of this amazing service. There are so many other parts to business, and they didn't sign up for that necessarily. And they realize, I do need to do that because it's part of having a business. And that's where, connecting with all those, because there'd be somebody else with a business that does exactly that. And this is why I'm all about connect.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I see it with so many purpose-led businesses, like people who are absolutely incredible at what they do. Like, and I work with so many amazing people, and so many of them have kind of stayed in that like best kept secret world, because either what they do almost comes so naturally to them now that they kind of don't see the value in it.
They think everyone knows it.
Yeah, exactly that. They don't realize how valuable they are. They don't realize that nobody else knows that it isn't obvious to everybody else. And then you've got people who have imposter syndrome, where they're just like, I don't know. Like a lot of my clients are sort of slightly, I don't want to say like slightly older, but they're sort of more in their like 40s and 50s. And so it feels very uncomfortable to them to start playing on Instagram reels and things like that. And they don't, like, very much like me, do not want to join the pony parade. The second something starts to feel like a popularity contest, I'm immediately out. Like the second it doesn't feel authentic anymore. Like I'm absolutely not up for that. So you have people that sort of fall into these buckets, and then you have people who they just don't know how to, like, they're so brilliant at what they do, they don't know how to translate it, because when they talk like an expert, and it's at such a level that people it goes over their heads. So you have to find that way of translating what it is that you do in a way that is palatable to people, in the way that they can actually digest what it is that you're saying.
That's so fascinating, and it must change actually through the stages of the journey as well, because you could be starting out and be really good at that because it's that you're right in there doing your thing, and maybe it's newer. And then as the years go by, and as you say, like, it becomes so normal, you think everyone knows it. So then you almost try to be too clever because you feel like you've got to impress, when actually, no, the same stuff still applies. People still don't really know this. It is expert. And I think at each stage of the journey and growth, you've got to remember and be connected to all the parts of that. So there's a thinker. Definitely. This conversation is brilliant. I love it. There are so many pieces to this conversation, and I'm sure we'll have more. I am absolutely sure we will have more. I'm so grateful for you coming on the show and talking about all of this today. We, as you know, on this podcast, don't pre-plan every minor detail. We know roughly what the topic is, but it's just real, raw, right here, real conversation, which I love. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's great. I'm always happy to come on and kind of talk about the journey and how, I love helping people that have businesses like ours, because I know, I'm very much at the cold face myself. I know what it's like when you're running your own business, and it can feel very isolating. And
Yeah.
sometimes it is, it's good to know that other people have those same thoughts and difficulties. And I think sometimes when you hear other people's journeys, you think, okay, like, I know what my next step is now, or it sort
Yeah.
of makes you feel better about where you're at.
Definitely, and opens up the thoughts and all the things. If people want to check you out, reach out to you, find you in some way, where's the best place? We'll put it in the show notes. Where's the best place to connect with you?
So my website is bemoreYouOnline.com, and I'm bemoreYouOnline at Instagram as well. So
Amazing.
those are the places I hang out.
That's where you are. I will make sure that's in the show notes, and anyone that wants to go and look at your work or drop you a message, head on over to one of those places. You will not regret it. Danielle, thank you again. I will absolutely be arranging to meet up and catch up with you soon. I feel like there's so much more we can talk about outside of the podcast, but for now, everybody, I hope you've loved this episode, and I'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and remember, go out there and shine your light bright, because you were born to be brilliant.